News!
Okay, we'll start with this. The fallout from Giovanni Santillan's upset win over Alexis Rocha, who up until now was ranked at #1 by way of the WBO and in a pole position to either become WBO champion or fight for the newly vacated title. As Terence Crawford ascends north of welterweight, it's not likely he's going to stay at 147. He's going to move up, whether he fights Spence again or not, at which point the brown belt will become vacant and someone becomes champion. It looks like it's going to be Giovanni. It looks like Alexis Rocha will lose ground in the WBO's rank standings. Ranked right behind him was Cody Crowley of Canada. But Cody Crowley very recently announced his retirement, so I don't think Giovanni would end up fighting him. Ranked behind Cody is Rashidi Ellis of the United States, who still hasn't rebounded off that loss to Roman Villa. Another upset loss, like this past weekend's upset loss, Giovanni's upset win. Based on styles, if it were Rashidi Ellis versus Giovanni Santillan, I would pick Giovanni to beat Rashidi for the same reason that Roman Villa beat Rashidi.
Because he's a pressure fighter. Rashidi Ellis, any pure boxer. They don't like mid-range to inside fighters, volume punchers. They don't like pressure. They can't handle it.
Rashidi Ellis was upset by Roman Villa because he couldn't handle the volume punching and pressure from him. I don't think he'd handle Giovanni's pressure any better. So if it came down to Santillan versus Ellis, I'd go with Santillan. Ranked right behind Rashidi Ellis is former unified champion Errol Spence Jr., who we all know isn't going to stay at welterweight, so that rules him out. Ranked past Giovanni at #5, past Giovanni, ranked at #6, is America's own Jamal James.
Very statuesque welterweight who could not handle the pressure from Radzov Butaev. I think that was a year ago. He couldn't handle Butaev's pressure. I don't think he could handle Santillan's.
Jamal James don't like pressure. Pressure fighters for many years now have gotten a bad rap as being too simple, too basic, being too flat-footed, but there are virtues to being a mid-range to inside volume puncher. There are virtues and there are drawbacks, like there are with any base style.
As there are really only 3 base styles in the sport of boxing.
Some fighters have their own unique variations of those 3 base styles. Some fighters, some have more than 1, some have 2. They're really special fighters, but in boxing, there are really only 3 base styles, and there are virtues to being a mid-range to inside, close quarters, volume puncher, pressure fighter. And not every polished boxer, not every decent boxer with decent feet and a decent jab can handle the pressure that a textbook pressure fighter brings. I don't think Rashidi Ellis would be able to handle it. I don't think Jamal James would be able to handle it. Ranked right behind Jamal James is former undisputed super lightweight champion Josh Taylor, who has yet to make his welterweight debut. I will say that if he found himself opposite the ring, Giovanni Santillan, as his first fight in the welterweight division, that's a tall order. That's a tough ask. That's a tough fight. I don't think that'll be his first fight at the weight. Giovanni Santillan is a top-ranked fighter. And ahead of this weekend's fight, you saw the people at Top Rank send their well wishes to him, that he would be going over to Golden Boy Promotions to fight Alexis Rocha.
2 different ways to interpret this. Maybe they viewed Giovanni Santillan as expendable, so they were willing to send him somewhere else, or maybe they trusted him to get the job done. It's actually not unusual for Top Rank to send their fighters out. That's what they did with Vosdick and Stevenson.
It's what they did with Jose Ramirez and Maurice Hooker, and that's what they did more recently with Giovanni Santillan in the Alexis Rocha fight. Maybe they just trust the guy to get the job done, so they're willing to send him out. Maybe it's that their investment in that fighter.
Maybe they weren't that invested before, but now that he's in a pole position to become WBO champion, they'll be more invested in him now. Bringing the WBO title back over to their side of things when the time comes, and allowing Top Rank to have a horse in the race, a stake in the welterweight division, because they haven't had one in a while.
Not since they parted ways with Terence Crawford, the current reigning undisputed champion, who very soon will vacate all of those alphabet titles. And now, unlike before, the division would be an open book. Before, the PBC had the run of the place. They had most of the notoriable welterweights, but their welterweight stable now is not what it used to be.
Sean Porter retired, Danny Garcia moved up, Errol Spence Jr. and Terence, they're gonna move up with him.
While Keith Thurman is still there, who the fuck cares about Keith Thurman? What was their stronghold is shrinking, and they can't bottleneck all the talent at welterweight anymore. So the welterweight division very soon will once again become an open book. And Giovanni Santillan, he has just emerged as a potential player in the world title picture.
What about Jaron Ennis? You didn't mention Jaron Ennis.
Well, that's because he's not a PBC fighter. Contrary to the opinions of a few, he's with Cameron Duncan, and you may have seen him boxing on Showtime and seen him on some PBC shows. He himself was not a PBC fighter until further notice. He had no arrangement with Al Heyman, and now that Showtime is out of boxing, where he's been boxing exclusively, he's free to go to another platform. He's free to go to another network. Al Heyman is rumored to be negotiating a deal between himself and Amazon, but it's a deal that people are saying is a long ways out.
Now, I don't know if Jaron Ennis and his team were playing with the idea of joining Al Heyman's PBC and becoming one of his fighters, but now that he doesn't have a platform, that would be a bad idea.
Right now it would. It could. Because you don't know how long it's going to take him to get a new broadcast partner. But however long it takes, that's how long it's going to take you to get another fight date if you were in bed with him. So do you want to wait around for Al to sort things out, or do you take your business elsewhere to another platform that can get you out there in a jiffy, that can keep you fighting? A platform like the ESPN platform, a promoter like the Top Rank Promotional Outfit, who promote Giovanni Santillan.
Do you see what I'm getting at?
During his time at Showtime, it's not like he had access to Heyman's stable of welterweights. He never got Danny Garcia. He never got Errol Spence Jr. or Sean Porter. He wasn't having any luck. He still isn't having any luck with Keith Thurman.
Terence is about to move up. He's about to go to junior middle or maybe super middle for Canelo Alvarez, but he's leaving.
Giovanni Santillan is in a pole position, could be very soon, to become a champion. That is a potential unification match for Jaron Ennis if he is willing to cross over to the Top Rank and ESPN side of things. You may be thinking to yourself, well, you could say the same thing about the winner of Thurman versus Stanionis. If that fight happens, it's a similar situation, with the difference being that if Keith Thurman wins that fight, what are the odds you get him in the ring with Jaron Ennis? And even if he doesn't win that fight, if Eimantas Stanionis wins, well, the instability with Heyman's PBC, the fact they don't have a broadcast partner yet, do you really want to roll the dice with them?
Yesterday's fight, Giovanni Santillan's win over Alexis Rocha, was another reminder that the welterweight landscape is about to change.
Team Ennis, more than most, need to consider that they may have to change their decorum depending on how the cookie crumbles. They're in line to pick up the IBF. Santillan is in line to pick up the WBO. He's with Top Rank on ESPN.
So where do you want to go? What do you want to do? How are you going to handle this?
I asked your coach tonight about you fighting Terence Crawford, and Bullet told me you knock out Crawford. What do you think about that? They have a sparring, by the way?
You heard that? Coach Bullet thinks Rolly Romero knocks out Terence Crawford.
Never sparred Crawford.
Okay.
Look, I'll tell you like this. I don't really care about Crawford. I called out Spence. I wanted to get that fight. Everybody knows why I called him out now.
Why did you call him out?
Because I saw that he was weak, and I saw that he was...
There you see Rolly Romero admitting that the only reason that he called out Errol Spence Jr. was because he saw he was weak.
He was fragile now, you know. I mean, he's been through a lot, right? And I wanted to capitalize on it, and Crawford got lucky, and he was the one that took that was able to capitalize on it, you know. But like I said, him beating Spence doesn't say much about Crawford.
Then what would you beating Spence say about you? Seems like you're just angry that Crawford beat you to the punch. Not that you would have beat Errol anyway, because you wouldn't have. You suck.
Because if he would have beat Spence, I don't know, 3 years ago, well, then that's completely... But Spence would have beat the shit out of him, man.
Woulda, coulda, shoulda. If my aunt had a dick, she'd be my uncle. It wasn't Terrence's idea to wait this long to do the fight. It was literally Errol's idea to save Terence Crawford for last. He had to clean up his room or his car. His side of the street or something like that.
Everybody high on Crawford right now, but he's not that special, man.
But you are?
And then he talking about moving up to fight Canelo?
He wants Tank or Canelo. Like, I guess Canelo's 68, yeah.
Well, he wants to fight Canelo?
What happens in that fight?
Bro, Crawford would never be able to box again after that.
You guys agree?
100%.
these very sharp boxing minds, these students of the game, scholars of the sport, and what passes for punditry in today's era of boxing is little more than a sycophant, a tag-along in Ali Sakbak, and a retard in Rolly Romero. This is supposed to be a champion, what to me seems like a year mark of the American boxing scene's fall from grace. That it's fallen so far, fallen so low, that this is what passes for a WBA super lightweight champion in this era. And you're hearing what he's saying, that he's not giving Terence Crawford any credit for beating that version of Errol Spence Jr. because he viewed him as a weakened fighter. A weakened fighter who had been through a lot, and yet that's the same version of Spence that he was trying to fight on that same predication. Does this guy know how stupid he sounds?
No, he doesn't. If he did, he likely never open his mouth.
The year mark of today's day and age, where every soundbite, good or bad, big or small, is captured through some medium and uploaded, platformed, that virtually anyone in today's day and age can achieve a platform. Even an idiot like Rolly, who some people find entertaining, though I don't. That old meme that's been passed around. Stop making stupid people famous.
Is Ali Sakbak so strapped for cash and strapped for footage that he's willing to ask this idiot his anecdotes, his annotations on boxing? He's a horrible boxer.
Well, Ali Sakbak is big on certain fighters, and he doesn't hide it. He's got his favorites. He picked Errol Spence Jr. to beat Terence Crawford, and Terence himself, after the fight, chastised him for it. So when Rolly's saying all this stuff, as stupid as it might sound, I'm sure that Ellie is enjoying it.
The reality of it all is that Rolly Romero and his boxing career, his world title status, all of it is just a joke that isn't funny.
He said he doesn't think there's anything special about Terence Crawford. Meanwhile, he needed a gift over Jackson Marinez. He had to be saved from Ishmael Barroso, and he's currently avoiding O'Hara Davies, his mandatory challenger. What's injured on this guy? Because the story is he couldn't fight O'Hara because he was injured. So what's injured? What heights?
The silver lining of the PBC being deplatformed by Showtime is now this idiot doesn't have any fight dates, and good riddance to bad rubbish.
No, if the powers that be could just figure out a way to separate him from that WBA title, Christmas will have come in early, because Rolly's not a serious pugilist, he's not a serious champion, he's not a serious anything, and he should never be taken seriously or encouraged. This guy, and anybody like him, is bad for boxing. He's a joke.
And maybe what the punchline is this guy was punchy before he started getting punched.
He's a retard. A fucking retard. What he is a joke that isn't funny. And what I would like to see is whether or not Rolly Romero is punch drunk enough to keep singing that same tune while Terence Crawford is around. That he's nothing special, that he just beat a weakened guy, and that he would knock Terence out. It's what we're here to do. We're here to see the fighters fight. Make a fight between these two.
I'd buy that for $1.
Crawford's nothing special. Let Rolly show us what he means. And finally, word round the campfire upstairs at heavyweight is that former champion Anthony Joshua has once again changed trainers. He's told BBC Sport that he will once again be switching trainers. We have to find the right opponent. I'm switching trainers. I'm following my process. AJ has been training with Ben Davison for the last few weeks. I'm not surprised to hear it, because that's what the word was a little over a week ago, that he wasn't down there in Texas with Derek James anymore, that he's been hanging around with Ben Davison.
I'm not surprised. And it's not encouraging either.
Bouncing around like this, what this essentially means is that once again, Anthony Joshua is going to be experimenting with a new trainer and perhaps a new base style in his very next fight. And he's been doing this a while, since he left Rob McCracken and jumped into bed with Robert Garcia and Angel Fernandez, subsequently Derek James, for what I think has been 2 fights, his last 2 fights, and now he could be jumping in bed with Ben Davison. They haven't made it official, but it looks that way. And maybe what it is that Derek took on too many fighters. That tends to happen when you're a star trainer.
You start to wear yourself thin. We saw that with Eddie Reynoso when he had Luis Neri and Ryan Garcia and Andy Ruiz, Frankie Sanchez, alongside Canelo Alvarez.
Derek James, once trainer of the year. I believe he was a 2-time trainer of the year. I believe he was in any event. He's the latest star trainer who perhaps bit off more than he could chew. He had Jermel Charlo and Errol Spence Jr. and Frank Martin, Anthony Joshua, and Ryan Garcia. He had a lot of high-profile clientele, and I'm certainly not putting anything on Derek James. I'm just saying that perhaps a part of the reason that Anthony might have parted ways with him is because he's got so many fighters in his gym, he can't give all of them the attention that they need.
Or him specifically, Anthony Joshua, who's looking to come back in either December or January. Meanwhile, Derek James still has work to do. He's got Ryan Garcia's next fight coming up.
The Oscar Duarte fight. You have to remember that Derek James has been on a bit of a bad run. What Crawford did to his guy Spence, what Canelo just did to his guy Jermell Charlo. Perhaps he's been spreading himself thin. Maybe he just ain't got enough time for Anthony Joshua between all of these high-profile fighters, so Anthony's taking his business elsewhere. I thought this partnership would be a lot more fruitful than it's turned out to be, and I thought that it was going to last longer. As it stands, it really only lasted for 2 fights, the Jermaine Franklin fight and the Robert Helenius fight. Now, Anthony's back on the market for a new trainer. It might be Ben Davison, who has unique insights into his rival, Tyson Fury.
Though I don't want to jump the gun.
They say that Anthony Joshua paid something like $2,000, $2,000, something like that, for some 4-day retreat where he's basically in isolation. It seems to me that he's doing some soul searching. He's been looking for something in a trainer that he can only find within himself. That Angel Fernandez or Robert Garcia or Derek James or nobody else, they can't give you what you're looking for. You can hire Ben Davison and maybe it'll work out and maybe it won't, but this much hopscotching from trainer to trainer inside of a 12-month period or a little over a 12-month period, it does accent instability. Instability within Anthony Joshua's own mind. Every other fight now, he's experimenting with a new trainer, new methodology, new base style, new philosophy. Every other fight now. And even if it shows that he still cares, and it does, it also shows that he's not settled, not on the inside.
Because when has it been a year mark of stability to bounce from trainer to trainer like this?
It's not encouraging. God only knows what version of this fighter we're going to end up seeing in his very next fight. People weren't too crazy about the last one, his last
outing, how he looked with Helenius.
As stated, changing trainers at this stage shows that he still cares and he still wants to be better, but he's still not sure of himself. At this stage, that's what that communicates.